How you going, Peter Birch here? It's another Lunchtime live on Talking Health Tech, where we go live on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook and any other social media platform that will let us do so. Each week, you're joined by myself and none other than the community manager at Talking Health Tech, Aidan Cousins. Hey, Aidan, how you doing?
Hey, Pete. Good. How are you?
Good. Every week you remind me how bad the internet is in Port Macquarie, so thank you for that reminder.
Sorry, what was that?
The irony.
No, I'm kidding.
I haven't seen any new instruments added to your wall behind you though, so good work focusing on at least those two. But
yeah,
buddy, we don't have time for you to serenade us with any of those just yet today, because we've got a full live stream. I'm going to bring on our guests. So for those that are joining for the first time, our Lunchtime live sessions, they're a little bit different to the podcast, obviously, because you can see video and it's live, but it's also recorded for those that want to watch it back too. We actually do get quite a few people watching it back. Might be busy during your lunchtime, so you weren't able to attend. Maybe you're just watching this with it in the background too. So if you are attending live, drop us a message in whatever platform you're on, and we can see that here, and we can help that comment shape the way the conversation goes. So we like to feature a guest in the community each week, from the Talking Health Tech community, but this time we've got something even more special. We've got two guests and two community members who've come together and sharing a message combined. So I'm going to bring them both on. We've got George from Podium, and we've got Hanya Oversby as well. Hey, Hanya. Hey, George. How you going?
Good.
G'day, Pete. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
nice one.
thanks for
Nice
the
one.
invite. Yeah.
Look, we're going to be, I think we're going to be demonstrating the breadth of the internet capability across Australia in this conversation. So, but we'll get through it. That's the joys of doing something live, right? So if you're watching live, make sure you drop us a note and let us know that you're watching. And, but what I might do, I might pass over to Hanya and George to give us a little bit more context about themselves. You've both featured on the podcast at some point. Hanya a while ago, but George somewhat recently. But maybe, Hanya, did you want to give a bit of an intro firstly about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again for the invite to be part of the network and your forum, which is great. So I'm the director of Specialist Consulting and Health Business Network. So we provide strategic business advisory services nationally around Australia to all medical practices in a private setting, providing strategic planning and also helping practices grow with ongoing mentoring and coaching and bringing that sort of business expertise. So that's where we've spoken before, and that's been really good. We're going to touch on this today with Podium. What's happened and what I found in recently is COVID has been quite a disruptor in this landscape. But what it has done is really open the doors to bringing in technology into businesses and the acceptance of it much more readily than it was before COVID, to be honest. So telehealth, all those sorts of things were fast-tracked. But now I'm finding with a lot of our clients, they're really open to interacting with third-party providers to bring that sort of level of expertise into their practices and businesses to create that sort of consistent experience for their patients and referrers and, you know, really systematizing what's happening. And that's where I was actually... Podium reached out to me and we have been working together collaboratively, and that's what we want to sort of explore today. So, yeah, that's positioning me and us.
Yeah.
So I might hand over to George.
Cool. Thanks, Hanya. Yeah. So spot on. We're in a similar bucket, I guess, obviously with, you know, what the industry is telling us at the moment, given the circumstances. But for anyone that's not across it, so Podium, we're a patient interaction and management software. And what we help to do is, firstly, organically grow the brand on Google. But at the same time, we really help to modernize that whole patient journey, which is pretty exciting. So actually, Pete, Hanya, I'm not sure if anyone's across this, but yesterday we just announced actually a new cap raise. Recently puts the value of Podium up from 1.4 to 3.5 4 billion, which is pretty exciting. So raised about 200 million in our Series D. So pretty aggressive in terms of, the opportunity that we have to provide to the industry. And, just to specify, like myself, I did come from a healthcare background in Podium and sort of moved over now into the partnership space to help, explore and expand that business unit. So excited to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like, the Podium name is something that just kind of, in Australia anyway, it's felt a little bit like it's come out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden you see that, you're up to Series D and valuation of in the multiple billions. So obviously got a lot more experience in the space than what I first led on.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's been exciting. And obviously we are a US based company and been in Australia now just over 2.5, 3 years. So growing rapidly.
Yeah.
Very cool.
To be honest, on that point, that was what sort of piqued my interest in Podium. I think that they've what was sort of exciting is, healthcare in Australia, I find, can sometimes be lagging behind in terms of its adaptation to new ways of practicing medicine and those sorts of things. And the fact that a company such as Podium have gone through the trials and tribulations of working in the healthcare space over there, and what we've been able to do is leverage off that learning over there. I think also what was sort of attractive to me as a business consultant was they'd already worked with about, correct me if I'm wrong, George, about 600 medical practices in Australia already. So it wasn't something that I needed to sort of work with this company in regards to inventing something new, which often I end up doing, but it was leverage something that already in place.
Yep. Not sure if that's my internet or did we lose Hanya?
No, I think it was because I saw both Aidan and Hanya freeze up, but I saw George was fine. I'm like, oh, maybe that was. I thought it was mine.
Am I all right? Am I frozen?
We're all good now. I think
We're all good.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
But no, so that's really good. I understand. You've since we can utilize the value of live streaming and show stuff on a screen, I think. So did you have some things to take us through?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just bear with me. I'll just pull it up, Pete. I think just converting across. So yeah, I'll be able to share it in one moment. But yeah, we did prefer a little bit of content, just given the opportunity to, again, we always love providing insights to the industry, especially from medical and healthcare focus. So just pretty exciting. So
no, good one. And just a reminder for those
watching little content.
Yeah, totally. And for those watching live, make sure you drop us a note and let us know that you are checking it out. I can see across different platforms we've got a few watching, but yeah, it's good to be able to share on the go. So once you guys are ready to...
should be able to pull that up now.
Cool. Alrighty, and then we'll just put that here. Cool.
Is that the right one? Oh, yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Sorry, George and I were just meeting yesterday and going, oh, what are we going to talk about? Yeah. All right. So...
cool.
Okay,
yeah. So go for it, Hanya.
Yeah, no. So I think that really what we were going to discuss today was how me and my business consultancy space and with my hat on was quite excited to be looking at Podium as a tool for medical practices that we're working in. So as I mentioned earlier, traditionally medical practices have relied on the best efforts of excellent staff or, putting in systems, but every time somebody new joins your practice or there's a resignation at your practice, there's a whole level of losing that excellence in service because there's not some consistent systems to follow. So for me, working with third-party providers that can provide excellence in, systems that integrate well with the practice. There's some out there that I'm obviously working with that are integrating directly with the practice management software, that's another topic. And we can, they're all fantastic tools. But where I saw Podium sitting, and it's interesting because it doesn't integrate with any of the practice management software, but the way I see it, it's a way to scale or leverage off your existing staff to provide a better client or patient experience from your practice. So we think of this software in that way, and that's what we're going to be exploring today. So
Fantastic.
Good one, Robert.
Do we get a comment?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Just I guess from to emphasize what Hanya was touching on, like we wanted to just provide a little bit of value to just everyone at the moment, because we've been doing a lot of analysis on the industry specifically. So there's a lot happening, and as we do understand, obviously 100% of businesses have literally been impacted for the last 18 months, right? Which means that there's been a drastic change in the way patients are engaging with clinics, the expectations that they have, how they're being found online, how they're engaging, and even going as far as, for instance, we've had patients being hesitant to actually enter a clinic post-COVID now, given the best practices around what does H&S look like, what does the compliance and safety processes look like. So how can we help these these clinics actually validate that online, which is a really key piece. Now, from what we found, and this is some data that we conducted in the industry specifically, and it's pretty exciting. So we interviewed over 1,000 Australians, local Australians, which is pretty exciting. And what we found is that reviews now actually influence 84% of Australian consumers in just engaging with a local practice. So what that basically means is a vast majority of people are actually saying now that reviews genuinely impact the perception of a clinic before engaging with it, which is something that's extremely powerful, especially now we've all spent so much time online, which has been pretty interesting. So COVID-19 obviously being the great disruptor, as Hanya was alluding to earlier.
Yeah, so exactly on that point, and it's from my experience with COVID, as I sort of mentioned earlier, it forced a lot of change on how people are willing to interact in a business sense, and especially with the medical practice. So other than just telehealth and how patients are getting sort of used to interacting with medical professionals, they're actually more accepting in receiving texts and information from the practice via text, which was something that I was really excited about with Podium, because at the moment, if I look at the expenses at a practice, generally it's usually around that 40% plus is in your payroll, that it's a really expensive resource. And a lot of practices use their human resources to do that sort of basic administrative stuff that can really be automated through text communication, which patients are more than willing to accept now. So that is really quite exciting, that we can interact with patients in that way. And by using tools such as this, you can leverage that the use of your investment in human resources into practice. So that's quite exciting, with COVID making that happen.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of this as well. Like when it comes to the actual reviews, people being extremely hesitant to collect reviews online. The APRA guidelines. There's a lot of misconception in the industry, I guess. And post COVID now, what we've seen is it's a lot more comfortable in terms of like reviews and the branding online, just generally speaking. So we highly suggest, like, for businesses, if they're able to, definitely focus or try and have a strategy around the reviews piece. It's really important. Patients are actually requiring and requesting this now from perspective of engaging or coming in. So 4.1 stars is the average star rating, is where you definitely want to be when it does come to that. And we've got some
major problem though currently in Australia with the star ratings of different local practices, where you have all these bots that come in and just fire off against a particular practice, making their ratings very low. Is there have you guys looked into that at all?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, mate. It's when it comes to the reviews specifically, there's bots, there's people unfortunately they leave bad reviews and stuff. The thing is with Google, and this is the reason why it's literally the only place that we can collect reviews when it comes to an online brand perspective based on the APRA guidelines, is Google, and it's because it's an agnostic platform. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages to that. The advantages to that, actually, let's go with the disadvantages of the fact, as you touched on, there's, in some instances, bots, not really within the healthcare space, we don't see it too much, but it does happen. There's ghost reviews that are being left on, there's unhappy patients, etc. So that isn't going to change. It's really hard to get Google reviews removed from Google because it's an agnostic platform. So there's one challenge, right? But the advantage and the opportunity is the fact that all of these clinics have built fantastic client patient bases over the years, which is extremely important. And a lot of these clinics historically have actually been built off, very strong, personal recommendation or reputation within the industry. The challenge that they've had is they've struggled to articulate that online. Now, what the data is actually telling us is, firstly, when it comes to consumers or patients engaging with the clinic, obviously nothing's going to be convenience in terms of location. That's top. So 58% of consumers are saying location's obviously key, and price and promotion very closely associated with that. So a great price, something competitive, etc. What's really, really interesting is the reviews piece, and 40% of people are saying that reviews actually influence the decision in engaging with the practice, which actually trumps personal recommendations. So what that's telling us is if someone's referred to a practice, they're still going to jump on Google and check the reviews now. The opportunity there is the fact that you do have the patient base, and we've seen this, right, time and time again. Most of these clinics actually do have the genuine patient base where they can collect the reviews and actually validate that online. They just haven't had a method or an opportunity or a way to do it up until this point in time.
Thanks for that, George. Just jumping on that while we're all talking about the APRA perspective, Peter Lee asked in the comments section, can you guys unpack reviews from an APRA perspective? Do you have a bit of an understanding around that?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's a tough one. It's not black and white. Like, let's be very clear on that. In saying that, though, what we do understand is, and this is literally the guidelines around it, is you can't, especially within healthcare specifically, you're not marketing your reviews. Your reviews are not there to market or grow your business or strategize across that. So what that means is you can't take your reviews off Google and advertise them online stating, look how great our reviews are. You also can't obviously incentivize collecting reviews or also you're condoning that sort of behavior around the reviews piece. So that's very clear. In terms of actually collecting the review, like if a patient leaves you a good review, like that's fine, it's great. And to be super safe, in terms of like responding to the reviews within the healthcare space, I'd probably keep it at a minimal. And especially when it comes to suggesting or, if patients are talking about specific doctors in the clinic and how fantastic they are, that's great. And just when it comes to actually responding to that, I just leave it something extremely general in terms of, thank you so much, we really appreciate it, whatever it might be. So hope that's clear.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I've got
really
to support George on that. This is a very grey area, and working with my practices, that's always been a challenge. So how do you ask for a review? Can you ask for a review? And the other flip of the coin is I've worked with a lot of practices that are trying to combat the negative review online, the negative Google review. That's a big problem with a lot of practices. Not a lot, well, some practices that I've worked with, but a lot of practices have that challenge in that just as much as somebody can go online and give you a positive review, somebody can randomly, that's not even a patient at the practice, sabotage your business and go in there and give you a negative review. It's very, very difficult area to manage, to be honest. Yeah.
And I find it fascinating that on one hand, as a small business, like any other small business outside of healthcare, you'd thrive on asking anyone you can to write reviews and share them wherever you can. But then in healthcare, there's a lot, like you say, the grey areas, the regulation for the right reasons, but it can create some, some questions or concerns for practice owners. So yeah, no, I'll let you keep going.
Yeah.
Cool. And then just to emphasize that as well, when it comes to collecting reviews, just finally as well, when it comes to collecting reviews on sites that you don't have control over, for instance, Facebook is not a place that you want to be collecting reviews, especially in the healthcare space. So it has to specifically be on a channel or a platform you have no control over, which again is why Google is literally the only place. So yeah. Cool. Another interesting one, actually, again, relevant industry data that we're seeing, just generally speaking, has got nothing to do specifically with the software or Podium. These are just things insights that we've been seeing in the industry that we're really passionate about. Obviously with the pandemic, the way patients are now engaging with reviews obviously has drastically changed, right? So there's almost 70% of people and Australians are saying that they're now reading reviews to validate local business and safety practices. So again, touched on that a little bit earlier, but just emphasizing the importance of the reviews or the online brand and the reputation. That's literally your patient's gateway now into the clinic from an outside perspective, given how dynamic everything is at the moment. And we've just got a few little tips here. Actually, I'm not sure, Pete or Hanya, if you guys ever claimed a Google listing yourselves, or
yeah, definitely.
Nice, cool. You'll be surprised. There's a lot of practices that we see, and obviously practice owners that are not too sure exactly how to claim their Google listing. So for anyone out there, we just thought we'd just provide a few little insights, a few little genuine steps. We can flick this across to anyone that's interested later on if you want to just put a post in the comments. But first step, obviously claiming your listing is very straightforward. And what you want to do is obviously make sure that you have updated details regarding the clinic and the business. What you also want to do is have some updated photos. Too many times we see people that set up their Google listing and they've got some selfies on there, or a photo of the side of the business, or the cat or the dog or something like that. So, which is nice. It's personable, but obviously you want to have a professional representation online, which is cool. And keywords as well. Something regarding to the treatments or the services that you do provide. It's obviously really important. And another really cool one, keeping your hours of operation up to date. So many times, and it sounds so simple, but a lot of people these days, especially given the business hours are dynamic and changing constantly, keeping hours of operations up to date, something so simple is really important as well. So
nice.
Cool. Hanya, be interested to hear a little bit more about your methodology. We do love it here at Podium.
Yeah. So I've most recently published an article and have presented at the ASAPS conference just recently for the plastic surgeons. Is all about outsourcing and why outsourcing your business. So really, I suppose when working with practices, as a business consultant, we look at looking at your profitability, growing value in your business, and letting it perform optimally. And quite often what happens with a lot of practices is that, as I mentioned earlier, they keep on hiring more staff or trying to resource it with staff within the business, where sometimes when you really have a look at where you can outsource, and even though it might initially seem a little bit more expensive, when you sort of look at it as the whole picture in terms of the more people you have in your practice, the more the payroll, the super, more attention you have to pay to those people. You're the one that has to train them up to be expert in what you need for that business. Where if you outsource, you just bring those consultants or contractors in for that particular project or for whatever needs to happen. And overall, so when you're done with it and you don't need it anymore, then it's gone from your business. It's not an ongoing liability. And plus, they bring with them a high level of expertise. So, George, I might get you to show the next slide. So, they give the specialised knowledge, and they've already had that training, and they've got transferable skills that they can bring to your business. So on the next slide, I think I've outlined sort of the key areas that you can outsource in your business. Obviously, business consultants such as myself, that we can come in and work on a short-term or long-term. There's business dashboards out there that I'm working with at the moment that are excellent. Online policies and procedures are available. So all the if you're interested in any of these, just reach out and I can tell you all about them. There's clinical consultants to come in and help you train up your clinical, clinicians at your practice, clinical training, environment and culture consultants, because your biggest asset is your team. And the longer you can keep them in your business, the better, because that's another topic altogether. But, to replace anybody in your business can cost your business minimum 1.5 years' wages of what it costs to engage that person in the first place.
Yep.
Marketing consultants. Well, online marketing platforms is where Podium sits in my outsourcing to others. You've got the IR experts, industrial relations, transcribing services, bookkeeping services, IT experts. So my challenge to the business owners that are listening to this and thinking about the size you are as a business, how much of this are you trying to provide in-house? And if you really did a proper cost analysis and a return on investment, what should you be outsourcing in your business? So that's why I was interested in speaking to Podium, definitely, because their online marketing platform is something that brings that level of expertise in. We've just been told the valuation is 3 billion. Is that what you've told me, George?
That's correct, Hanya. Yeah.
Oh my God. So here you are, that's where we need to be as medical business owners, leveraging off businesses. And I'm going to tell you, Podium's already invested money in, I haven't even asked George, but I'm guessing marketing, best practice, all these things that can happen, and working with so many other businesses. So my challenge to you is partner up with people such as this that are growing, because you're going to get the benefit of their growth. And that's sort of where my mind's at in working with the outsourcing with different providers.
And I guess from our side too, from a Talking Health Tech perspective, it's great to see, members from within our community engaging in different ways to leverage strengths and, Hanya relationships with clinicians and specialists and practices, and then Podium obviously with expertise around that marketing side. It's great to see, the two of you coming together to provide this really useful information to people that are running those practices and navigating this this tricky landscape. So
Very tricky.
yeah.
Well, as a business owner, because they're my key stakeholders usually that I'm working with, the business owners. They've got these, and a lot of them are clinicians, doctors and practitioners, plus business owners. So they're in this, as you were saying, it's difficult to get reviews on Google, because normal businesses, a lawyer, say, for example, doesn't have, or actually probably a bad example, because they might have some difficulties there too. But, if you're any other business out there, you can go out and promote yourself and hire people to do jobs and those sorts of things. But quite often if the business owners we're working with are the clinicians as well. So you've got to be the doctor or the clinician in the business. You've got to be a lot of the management as well, and the entrepreneur. So the more you can surround yourself with expert products or consultants or providers, the better it is for you.
Awesome.
For sure. And we've seen a lot as well. There's from the clinics we've been working with, Hanya, I don't know if you can relate to this, but there's been a massive shortage of staff as well, just generally speaking across the industry, which obviously causes its own challenges as well in regards to retraining and upskilling and making sure that processes are consistent and communication and stuff. So what we've also found is SMS is a great way in terms of the communication piece. Like, marketing lens is fantastic, but it's also the experience piece and the patient experience piece. Something that's really powerful as well that might resonate, if I can get my screen going. There we go. Is in terms of the SMS communication, just generally speaking, 98% is the open rate of text compared to 20% on email. And obviously 90% of people read a text in the first few minutes. So tying into what you just touched on there, Hanya, as well, it's really cool that you can actually utilize SMS as a very personalized method of communicating outside of just maybe generally appointment reminders and recalls, and you can actually utilize that as a strategy to have that level of personalization and care for your patients at scale without actually depending on staff members, if they're in, if they're not in, if you have to upskill or retrain a new staff, and you can add an element of sort of automation through that as well. So it's something that we found that's been really powerful in the industry as well, from a communication lens at least.
Yeah,
I find with SMS. I was going to say, I find with SMS that it's kind of one of those Uncle Ben moments with with great power comes great responsibility. It's high open rate, but if you abuse that, then you can quickly be put in the rubbish.
Absolutely, it's the last thing that you want.
Yeah.
For sure.
I totally agree, Peter. So I think for me, say, working with a platform such as Podium, what sort of attracted me to the platform was the communication in a positive way with patients for consistency. So I think this is where I was alluding to, that if you hire new staff, there's a whole bunch of training that needs to go in, that you need to say, we need to do this with the patient and ensure they get this handout, and then you need to ring them, confirm their appointment, and so forth. But what I'm excited about Podium is that we can send out post-treatment information. This is especially, in specialist practices, but all practices, post-treatment information sheet. So rather than somebody running around the practice to try and find, you've had something excised, and how do you care for that wound? It's at reception, and they say, we'll send a text, and they're at home. Suddenly that experience with that practice has elevated above the competitors, because you're saying, oh yeah, I had that removed. Here I am in the bathroom at 2 a.m. What do I need to do? They're not looking for a piece of paper. They go to their phone and they go, oh, hi, XYZ practice. Today you had an excision with us, and you're going to have to care for your wound. Wow. How amazing is that? So I hear what you're saying, but if we make that interaction helpful for the patients, that's a real plus. Yeah.
That's great advice. Yeah.
And I guess holistically from a patient's lens as well, just to touch on Podium a little bit around the whole patient journey. And, you're right, Pete, 100%. You don't want to abuse the SMSing. We're very structured around that as well. I think it's really important in terms of knowing when to communicate something relevant, informative to the patient regarding, as Hanya touched on, pre-treatment instructions, aftercare instructions. It could be, an appointment's opened up a little bit sooner and you just want to notify the patient, etc. So obviously nothing will replace a phone call. Like, that is obviously the premium. That's the best. In saying that, it's not as scalable. So we found that text is a great method in terms of communicating. There's also a component from a marketing lens as well, which definitely you wouldn't want to abuse, but there's also there's a campaigns component, or, specifically commercializing, which is a different form of communicating as well through the software that we can sort of differentiate. So yeah, totally valid in terms of abusing text as a form, and the Uncle Ben moment like you touched on. So but there's a few different ways that I guess you can look at the patient lens, and if it's from the initial conversation to converting and transacting and communicating with that patient specifically around their appointments and the touch points between that, even collecting payments, for instance. And also there's the opportunity to fully service the patient further from that. We've seen a lot of clinics in the industry now sort of innovating a little bit, and they're introducing newer forms of treatment. There's new technologies hitting the industry as well, and they're expanding the services to be able to care for their patient all in the one shop, in the one house. So I think that's where the value is in terms of something like Podium, where you can look at everything a little bit more holistically and sort of service that.
Also on that convert and transact, I think what sort of attracted me to Podium was the payments portal. With a lot of the practices I work with, and again, in specialist practice, say for example, a new patient appointment depends on what kind of surgery or appointment it is. It can be between 30 and 60 minutes. And so if a patient doesn't turn up to that appointment, there's very little recourse that practices can have other than putting a non-attendance fee on that patient, which is rarely recouped, because either the patient is never going to turn up there ever again for whatever reason, and then that was a whole hour and as we know, the most valuable commodity in a medical practice is the clinician's time. So for me, with a lot of practices we work with, for the longer new patient appointment, it's good to collect a deposit for that appointment, and to not have somebody to ring a patient to say, hey Pete, you've got an appointment with Dr. Smith, can I have your credit card details or anything like that you can collect a deposit, and it can just be part of the automated process, which is quite strong.
Yeah. Like Pete, I guess from your perspective, talking health tech, like how have you seen communication evolve within the industry, just generally speaking, over the last maybe year or two? Has there been something drastic, or have you seen a difference or a change in the way patients and clinics are communicating? Or
oh, look, I think speaking with guests that come on the show, vendors, and also clinic owners too, really looking at how they engage with not just patients but their own staff too in a virtual way is obviously front of mind, and a lot of it I think is going to then stick because it drives consumer expectations, and that's what people expect. The same similar experiences they have outside of healthcare they expect to receive in healthcare now, and we've shown that it's possible. So I think it's about how it continues to happen.
Fantastic. Yeah. And this is a really cool sort of slide we've come across as well in terms of, the evolution of the communication. So very much, at a point where, if you look at the 2010s starting back from, you had mail and phone calls like direct mail, and then obviously we've evolved, the internet was introduced. You've got, things like Google and YouTube, etc. So, I can't imagine to think what another 20 years from now would look like, to be honest. So quite interesting, but, just a bit of an insight into how we're all sort of engaging, just generally speaking, which is pretty interesting. So
yeah, nice.
Cool. Might jump through that one, but yeah, what I can see here is very straightforward in terms of personalization. Again, it's really important. We are utilizing technology, and we've seen that it's very receptive in the industry. It's even more important to actually personalize that. And we've got, again, some more insights. Like, we've got different reports from the industry which we can share across. I actually might drop it in the community at some point as well, Pete. I think it'd be really valuable. But again, all this is relative localized case studies. We do have 70 plus staff members in Australia, and over 4,000 businesses that we do work with across the country. So we've got some very solid sample sizes and case studies regarding the industry. So this is what we're seeing, and 76% of Australians report they're more likely to text with local business if they knew a real person was going to respond. So we found that really powerful as well.
I find that generally too, when people ask about, not just in healthcare, but anything in business, it's working out how to do activities that feel personalized in a scalable way, or for something that feels hyper personalized, but doing it, and it doesn't have to be, because often you think about doing something at scale, it's like providing generic information, or, providing something that you could get anyone to do and you could just sit back and let it all kind of happen. But, it's using tools in a clever way so that, as a patient, when you receive something in your day-to-day life, if it's personalized, it's taken into consideration what you've just, experienced or your circumstance, you're actually more likely to pay attention. So taking some of those and putting them into using some of these tools like this to do that makes a lot of sense to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure there's people out there can totally relate to that. Sorry, Hanya?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with Pete as well, and you, George. And I think what's exciting, I suppose, is working in that medical vertical, with being invited to work with them in that medical vertical, sort of to explore this particular area, because even though, overall the stats show that people like to be communicated through via text, and how does that look? But we all know in the medical practices and businesses, there's different nuances that you need to take into account. You can't just apply the usual business rules here. So that's it's good on you, George and Podium, for looking at this particular vertical in a special way. Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. Well, look, sorry, anything else before? Because usually what we do in these live streams as well, we're going to have a quick look at what's happening in the Talking Health Tech community. But was there any kind of final thoughts on your stuff? And please hang around as well for when we look at that too. But just to close out those slides and comments, any final thoughts for those checking it out?
Yeah, just for me, as I'm working as a solutions partner with Podium and looking to solutions in this area. So if anybody's in the forum and is interested, I suppose, in the medical perspective, feel free to reach out and we can have a chat. That would be my closing comment, definitely.
Fantastic. No, I just appreciate you having us on. Thank you, Hanya, Pete. Like, always love providing insights to the industry. Really passionate about it. I think it's a really big opportunity what we have to actually evolve from a digital landscape as well, and from consumers and clinics side as well. So no, I do appreciate it. If anyone's interested, you can just look up podium.com.au and you can reach us there. So
brilliant.
I will definitely hang around. Cheers.
Cool.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, no, hang around, because we're going to look at. Yeah. No, look, each week on the live as well, we go through and we look at what's been happening in the community, and we look at the newsletter as well. Aidan, you've been keeping things busy in the community. What are some things jumping out at you as what's happened this week across the industry?
I think the biggest news recently has been the 2021 Brilliant Women in Digital Health Awards, hosted by Telstra Health, I believe it was, earlier this week. We were very fortunate to have quite a few members of the THT community who have been awarded the prize of being a Brilliant Women in Digital Health. So congratulations to, I'm sorry for not
Zara,
remembering these
and
off
there's
by heart.
Angela, and there was Kate as well, in particular. So,
Wow,
that was,
fun.
but there's loads going on there. It's a great report to look at. Some of those amazing women doing some really important things, and a few of them have been on the podcast as well. Even Amandeep we've recorded an episode with. That's coming out shortly. There's a bit of a spoiler alert. Emma, of course, came on a live stream recently, and Bridie Ann I saw was in here too. She was featured in one of our summits as well. So yeah, it's a great initiative, I think, and I know Telstra Health are planning to do lots more with the brilliant women in digital health awards as well. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and it just seems to be like award season at the moment because CoView also won Australian Technology Company of the Year award about a week ago now. So that was a very exciting moment for CoView and Sylvia Pfeiffer and all the team there, which is a really exciting thing to round out the year too.
Yeah, lots of positive vibes happening there in the community too, and that's well deserved.
Yeah, while we have yeah, exactly. Sylvia's been really involved in everything through THT over the last few months, especially. So it's been good to watch CoView evolve as well. And while we have all these people involved with practice management softwares and everything, the RACGP is launching a rebrand. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but what do you think of the sliced sourdough? We'll get it up on.
Wait, was it in the think tank? Or no, where was it? Where did you put it? You put it in...
No, it's in industry updates, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's RACGP.
Oh, wait, why am I not seeing it? Because we actually looked... Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that one right there.
We mentioned it last week in the live as well, but it was a great one. You because you weren't here last week, Aidan, on the live. It was me and Stephen. We were looking at the different... Because there's the College of Surgeons and their new brand, which... there's the old one here, which looks very proper, but
very surgeon-y.
Very surgeon-y. And then there's the sliced sourdough.
Taking a scalpel to some sourdough. So I'm not sure what you guys think.
And then I don't know. I like these options. I think that I like how they've brought together some of the the medical emblem style things going on, the snake around the thing.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah. Are they both? No color in them, interestingly.
I think that's interesting. The modern kind of simplified.
Yeah, especially the College of Surgeons one was quite intricate and colourful before. Is it the same blue as well?
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Same company, maybe. They just I don't know. We're talking with George from Podium, and their logo is the simplest out of everyone. So
it's come a long way. Let's for that much. No, it's cool.
Yeah, sure. It's you notice it too. So yeah, it's interesting. Branding's such a fascinating topic, isn't it?
Less is more in like what we found, especially as you guys are across, right? Less is always more. In today's day and age.
Yeah,
so I like it.
Yeah, that's right. And it's got a more modern feel. And actually, that was what someone raised in the chat. That it's interesting that because apparently that's a lot of the discussion among the GPs about potentially changing the name to try and broaden it out to be more than a GP. But I guess if they're going to be redoing the branding, it's kind of solidifying what the name's going to be for quite a while. So unless they're two unrelated things.
Well, it's interesting because the states call themselves family physicians. They're not called primary care providers over there. They're called whole family physicians. So do we try and follow suit and say we're all family physicians over here, or do we keep with just the general practitioners?
Yeah, it's I feel like whatever you did, it would be a long time for people to change how they referred to them as well. Like there's a cultural thing. So it's I can see the reasons though. It's an interesting one to continue having that conversation, I think, in the community. Hey, also, for those that aren't subscribed to the newsletter, you should totally go to talkinghealthtech.com/newsletter and you get the weekly update, and you can see what's going on across our community, as well as some of those industry updates that we mentioned. You also get to see what's been happening on the podcast. But we also have started doing it as a bit of a Twitter thread, which is available too. So make sure you follow us on Twitter if you're not email inclined and keen to just keep up to date with what's happening on Twitter. We've got a growing following there as well. And that's...
You got to show the TikTok, Pete, while you're at it.
Oh, man. The Talking Health Tech TikTok account is going off. So, yeah, it's... I don't know, Hanya, how many followers have you got on TikTok?
I'm on the platform, but I haven't posted.
There you go. Okay, yeah. So this is you can't think. I assume Jordan's got a pretty pumping TikTok account, but you know.
Yeah, just the office dances and things like that. Sometimes, you know.
No, you'll have to check it out. Then the Talking Health Tech one. It's content that is just a little that's tailored towards TikTok. And although people learn a lot on the platform, and there's some interesting stuff we could cover on health informatics there. So you know, it's going to be interesting to see how social media generally evolves, and the more that businesses get involved.
It won't be Google's My Doctor anymore. It'll be TikTok's My Doctor in a few years, won't it, with all this content coming out on the platform?
No, the doctor influencer. Yeah. Crazy times. But look, we might wrap it up there, guys. Look, I really appreciate you giving your lunch break to be able to take us through the work that you're doing. There's some really important stuff that's on point for a lot of clinic owners as well. So I'm sure there are many questions that people will have, and and you've provided some details for people to get in touch with you if you've got those questions. Looking forward to following all the work you're doing, and thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Pete. Aidan, thank you. Hanya, see you soon. Thank you.
Everyone.
Later.
Cheers. Bye-bye.